Evelyn Penza. I am third generation.
I'm Tony Penza. I guess I'm fourth generation.
We experimented until it was perfect. I still have the same man for over 20 years who I taught how to make our pies, our fruit pies. We use fresh apples. We use fresh everything. I make a lot of quiche. I make chicken pot pies. I make homemade meatballs. Whatever it is, I do it.
Obviously, every family is made from two people. We were made from the Penzas and the Rizats. The Rizats happen to be across the street there, Glossy Fruit Farms. And the origins of that, Mr. Rizat would have come over from Sicily, and Mr. Penza would have come over from Casalbellino on the mainland of Italy. So they were probably in their teens, early 20s when they both came over about the same time in the 1880s, late 1880s. I guess a lot of Italians waited for maybe the Civil War to be over so that there wasn't anything they had to deal with here. You know, let them fight it out. Everything was solved. Now the coast is clear. I guess they opened the gates and said, come on, immigrate. And people probably came over that weren't established as a family, established as a career. We're looking for something maybe better, or just to get away from their parents, you know, who knows. And it seems like they would always go back later and then bring their parents here. So even though Carmine Penza, say, who would be Aunt Evelyn's grandfather, would have been the first one here, also buried right here in Hammonton is his parents. So eventually he must have went back and got Angelo Penza and his wife. And I did find every single gravestone possible. And they're all right here in Greenmount Cemetery in Hammonton. A lot of us were migrant farmers from Philadelphia. So they would go down to Philadelphia, stay with family there. They would migrant farm in Hammonton in the summertime until I guess they could find a plot of land or had enough money to, you know, buy something, renting a house. I know that some of the Penzas lived on Line Street, and there was 2 or 3 families in a little, you know, early 1900s house. You know, maybe 1,100 square feet with maybe 3 families in it. You know, I don't know how they all stayed like that. And Evelyn would tell stories that they would live up top and the animals would be on the bottom. So the heat from the animals would, you know, would heat the house. And, you know, they would have summer kitchens. You cooked outside. You didn't cook in the house like we do now. You cooked outside. And that's how they lived in the early 1900s.
His grandson moved there.
But
this
all right
is the
here.
way farmers do and did. They would just hand their homes down to their sons and children and grandchildren. And I guess you're going to see this all through Hammonton. In the 70s, it was not fashionable to be a divorced mom. Even though I was a 7th grade English teacher in Hammonton, because I had gone to Vermont. Fred and I lived in Vermont because that's where he was working at the State House in Montpelier, and loved Vermont so very much, loved Stowe, Vermont so very much. But my father became ill, and we came home. And I moved into the house that he was living in, and he moved into my grandfather and grandmother's house, and they had eventually passed. I was not happy with the way a mother was characterized who was not married, and I had no intention of remarrying. And I said to my mom, I said, Mom, I've got to do something where I lock in these kids right here where they feel like they are a part of something. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to make pies, just like you do. Oh, good. What kind of pies are you going to make? And I told her that I'm going to do them a little different than what you're doing, because I want to mix flavors. Raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, peaches. Mix them all up together. You cannot do that, she said. She was an award-winning baker. She was a fabulous baker, and she really took time when she did things, and I kind of shoot from the hip. And she said, it's not going to work. She did not believe it was going to work until Al Roker called me up from New York and said, we saw online that you make a pumpkin ricotta pie. And I said to myself, when it's Thanksgiving, the Medicans make ricotta with, they don't make ricotta. The Medicans make the New York style cheesecake, and they put pumpkin in it. So I said, why can't we do that? That would be so much fun. Well, he sent his crew down here, and it really put us on the map. And I don't want to tell you, but I told him he couldn't come. I said, I have one son who is getting engaged. The other son is getting married in the fall. And I said, I know what happens. You people think that we have a machine in the back that throws out all these pies. And that's what it was like. He said, we're coming anyway. And that's what they did. They came in after my older son was married. They came anyway. And they were filming the pumpkin ricotta, because this is what Al Roker did on the side. He had little restaurants, that were mom and pop kind of things, and that put us on the map, big time. We really worked. And it was a time when I was young, my kids were young, Tony was young, and we had a ball. We had an absolute ball. We made pies like crazy. It was a time when business was good. I've always worked. I've always worked. I taught school during the day. We had 2 shifts. We were so busy. And of course, my mom was able to help me too. But we had 2 shifts working. My kids were happy. They were with their grandfather all the time. They were with their grandmother all the time. And they grew up with a strong sense of family. That's what I wanted, and that's why I did it. And I'll do it again, if I have to. One lives over there in my mother's house, and the other one, and I live across the street, and the other one is behind me. He built his house there. And the older one's a techie, and he's our go-to person, just like Tony is. Tony is our go-to person. And Vincenzo is his name, the younger son. Freddie farms blueberries. That's where we are right now. That's where we are right now. I have grandchildren, and either one of my sons or my grandchildren will move into my house, and we will continue. The kids, my boys, will not let anything happen to this is everything to them.
So if this is 30, you're looking at the paper, can you see it? So this thick white line has got to be 206 by now, which is probably a dirt road at this time. So there's a dot right here in the corner. That's got to be this, house plus barn. So this was before 206 was a dirt roadway, because it says roadway coming this way. Basin Road, while not entirely accurate, it comes out to Myrtle Street. So Myrtle Street is running up the center, which is the road perpendicular to 206 right here. Myrtle Street's always been there. Basin Road used to cut right through this property and go to Myrtle Street. When the land was divvied up after Graham and Pop got married, Basin Road then stopped so that my parents could build a house. And the pond was there and everything. So it shows here, house plus barn. And there's house plus barn right at the corner of what would be 206 and Myrtle Street. And beyond that would have been the old homestead, which is still there. So that's where Hank Razat lives in what his parents' house were. And that's still there. His brother Tony Razat lives next to him. I mean, if we just come over a couple plots, this would be, you know, their other brother Dave Razat would have been here. Dave has since passed, and that house has been sold to another family. But this entire corner has always just been Penza and Razat. Well, all of this entire photo was probably Razat, and then became Penza on this side of 206, and Razat still maintained everything on that side of 206. So I'd say at the heyday of the Red Barn Farm, there was a good 100 acres being farmed of various fruits and vegetables. Dad was the farmer for Red Barn Farm. So Aunt Evelyn was teaching English. My dad was the farmer. And he did everything but blueberries. So, you know, fruits and vegetables, peach trees. Some of the photos you see, that one of the old barn has an orchard off to the south side. That was all peach trees. Dad did peaches, apples, you know, stuff in the ground, eggplants, tomatoes, peppers. And then when we talk about this barn, it used to be over there.
There was a man named Jack Giordano, and again I said it was my mother whose vision was impeccable, and Grandpa Razat was going to tear it down, and the original bell is still on it from the early, or I would say the late 1800s, and she said, "No, Pop," as they called him, Pop. Jack it up and move it out next to the pond. And that's where this barn sat from the mid-50s until I came back I was working for the military in Europe. And I came back from Europe in the 70s, and this barn sat here all that time. Can you imagine? If it could speak, what it would say, because they had a ball here. There were so many different things that happened in this barn, which is another story. Here at the Red Barn, we have memories. This is my mom, rice pie, Duxbury pie. These are her traditional recipes. This is my father, who was so much fun, so much fun. Oh, and he loved Tony. This was the brewery in the background, and he was an engineer too. Here is my mother, here is my grandfather, here is his son, here is my Aunt Jenny. And as you can see, they would take these pallets, now they have pallets, but these were called skids. And they would take them right into the cooler. This is my grandfather's sister, Nellie. She was a sorter for the peaches. And here again is my mom. And everybody's related.
I knew I was always coming home and would always come home and coming home.